before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I currently am, the Gamma people, and pay my respect to their elders past, present and future. Just take a deep breath. Think about your breath flowing through your body, going through to your feet. Think about the balance. Think about a moment when you've been courageous for yourself and another person, because courage is the key to equality. Excuse me, I'm down a moment. Muhammad Ali is my favorite athlete of all time. Many quotes. My favorite quote is, "It isn't the mountains ahead to climb that wear you out, it's the pebble in your shoe." Can you imagine marching in Mardi Gras in heels with pebbles in your shoes? Can you imagine running a marathon with pebbles in your shoes? It's not the march, it's you focusing on that pebble. So how do you throw away that pebble? You throw away that pebble with courage. But we think about equality. It's never been a fair fight, but boxing is focused on a fair fight. People are matched on experience, weight divisions. We wear hand wraps to protect our fists. Boxing gloves are actually padded to prevent impact. And we actually wear head guards in amateur boxing. It actually reduces the impact, but also against tissue damage. Boxing has referees, it has judges, you match people based on experience. I wouldn't put Ivan K against Mike Tyson because I know Mike Tyson would have no chance against Ivan K because He's so passionate. Ivan is so passionate about equality. But when we think about LGBTQI plus equality, the most famous, 1969, the Stonewall riots is really what sparks the global rights for LGBTQI plus equality. But the Stonewall Inn, people had had enough, but it was everybody within the community, gay men, lesbians, bi people, trans people, particularly trans people of color, LGBTQI people of color, the intersectionality within our community. Growing up in the UK, you remove one law, hate is enacted again in new laws. Section 28 was a terrible piece of legislation in the UK. It effectively presented teachers helping gay kids. It was a law to prevent the promotion of homosexuality. It took almost 20 years for that law to be repealed. And here in Australia, we actually had the ignominy of a vote on same-sex marriage. I've been in a relationship for almost 19 years, been married for over 11 years. Personally, I did not feel it was right that the citizens of this country get to vote on my marriage. I remember one day, and it was a Sunday afternoon, a skywriter in Sydney, it was vote no. So everybody here who's part of the LGBTQI plus community could see in Sydney, vote no. Fortunately, the beauty of the Australian people voting yes for equality. I remember being in Victoria Park, waiting for that statistician. 4 minutes he started his speech before he said yes. And that we came together. Australia was very late, but the fight for equality, it's never been a fair fight. Now, courage has always been our corner. In a boxing match, you have the coach in your corner. The coach will be saying, focus on your breathing. Remember I said, focus on your breathing, how your legs are feeling? Well, Muhammad Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. How often have you been stung like a bee? What do you offer back? When you're stung like a bee, do you want to fight back? The LGBTQI plus community has offered honey. We've invited people to join us, to feel part of the community. Courage, for me, started probably in 2006. I had gallstones blocking my liver. I developed pancreatitis after dye seeped into my pancreas from having a procedure. Within 12 hours, I was in intensive care. I was placed in 2 induced comas. I had septic shock, collapsed lungs, undiagnosed Addison's disease. One of my worst fears has always been a tracheotomy. Here is my tracheotomy scar. I remember the moment I was sedated and the surgeon performed the tracheotomy. I remember the fear, was I going to die? I remember the fear and the pressure on my neck. But what I focused on was the courage of the doctors, the medical staff, everybody trying to save my life. The second moment was being placed in an induced coma, second induced coma. This is my natural voice when I speak through my throat. I had to learn to speak again using my diaphragm. Why did I mention the tracheotomy? Because it was living through my worst fear. I had to be courageous to get through that. In my second induced coma, one thing I remember were the dreams which cause incredible PTSD. But as I said, we were stung like a bee, we're offered honey. And there's a typo in the bee. That's the thing. Courage moves us forward. I define courage as the ability to take psychological and physical ownership of fear. Psychological ownership, here, what was Norman saying earlier? Physical ownership, I breathe, but if we breathe, focus on our breath, focus on our body, it's not as bad. But we also have to venture forward into the challenge or threat with confidence and resilience. Be confident, resilient, you will get through it. I talk about courage going at your own pace, but also think about all those times you've been courageous. I mentioned earlier a time when you've been courageous for yourself and others. The courage of people at the Stonewall Inn, the courage of people to fight for marriage equality, the courage of people to vote against, so to actually say Section 28 was wrong. Because without their courage, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you today, but those memories are something which I call the courage bank. The next time you face something fearful, think about a moment when you've been courageous. How do you feel? Use those memories and print them on your mind to drive you forward. Now, I say courage at your own pace because I think we all do things at our own pace, but really pace stands for passion. When you're passionate about something, you will find the time to do it. Whether it will be going to the gym, doing the CrossFit that Norman was talking about earlier, that amazing presentation that Sunita was giving us earlier, when she's talking about the map. One of the reasons I was so keen to Sunita to present, because talking about what is happening in India right now, the courage of our beautiful friends in India to get through this grave crisis, but also the courage in the last 2 to 3 years, India has decriminalized male homosexuality. Imagine if that was only decriminalized in Australia 2 years ago. We've been fortunate because people have fought for our rights. But with passion, you take action. You decide to do something, you start doing it. There's less of that thought. There's less of, I'm going to do this today. You start doing something today. Now, I talk about confidence. One of my biggest flaws was being perfectionism. I could never meet my own standard. But when you're confident, it drives excellence. With excellence, you know you can do something. You repeat that process again. With passion, action, confidence comes excellence. And courage is the key to overcoming anything. Courage is the key to equality. Last weekend, there was a boycott of social media by Premier League players in the UK, soccer players, by Premier League clubs, by sporting clubs, by football, even Sky Sports and BT Sports took a break from social media. Why? Because the incidence of racist attacks on social media is increasing. There's also homophobic attacks are increasing. Why do I mention that? Because of the intersectionality. But let's just focus on LGBTQ+ sport. 90% consider homophobia and transphobia as a problem in sport. To the extent they participate less. 16% of LGBTQ+ sporting participants have reported a negative experience due to their sexual orientation or gender identity. Of those 16%, 20% have experienced physical violence. Gay and bisexual men play team sports at half the rate of their straight mates, but are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide. And the stats for mental health in the LGBTQ community are off the planet. In terms of anxiety, depression, and attempting suicide. But why did I talk about boxing? Well, LGBTQ+ boxers have been blazing a trail. In the 1990s, Christy Martin, she was the first female boxer to appear on the same card as Mike Tyson. She was represented by Don King, who was known the King of Boxing. Christy Martin recorded a beautiful message for me a few weeks ago. She is now married to a beautiful wife. Christy Martin legitimized female boxing in America. She also survived a murder attempt by her ex-husband. Can you imagine being shocked? She has now created a charity to help people of domestic violence and family violence overcome. But we've also had my great friend Orlando Cruz. He was the first gay man to really be represented boxing at the elite level. In 2016, the Pulse nightclub, approximately 50 people were murdered. I think it was the second highest gun attack in America. A month later, Orlando Cruz, he's Puerto Rican, 28 Puerto Rican men were murdered. He used the rainbow flag, fighting for boxing, referencing what happened in the Pulse nightclub, and dedicating his fight to the victims of the Pulse nightclub. But boxing is a great sport for mental and physical health. And it's not just all about this, it's also about confronting your fear. When you're hitting your bag, you get in the endorphins, but it's also a great way for great physical health and mental health. Boxing has millions of participants and fans. You think about YouTubers entering the ring, but we also have awesome allies. In the last 4 months, the World Gay Boxing Championships has had messages of support from the president of the World Boxing Council, the World Boxing Association, the International Boxing Organization. We had a great statement of support from the World Boxing Organization. So the leaders in the sport are supporting the grassroots amateur level, the LGBTQI+ community. Boxing is a global sport watched by millions. It's a great form of exercise. When you think about YouTubers entering the ring, Floyd Mayweather, who is probably the most famous boxer of this century, will be fighting somebody Logan. I don't know his name because for me, I focus on the champions of the sport. YouTubers for me are great for what they do. They're not champions, but YouTubers are entering the ring. It's a growing sport. Within the US alone, there are 6.5 million participants. In England, almost 800,000 participants. In Australia, the home of the World Gay Boxing Championships, there are 300,000 participants, including somebody called Ivan K, who I'm signing up to fight in the World Gay Boxing Championships. In that fight card, I might invite Tyson Fury, you know, the world heavyweight champion, because Tyson Fury, very homophobic, stands no chance to beat Ivan K because Ivan K is an ally. But boxing has a huge fan base. And when we talk about the global world, you think about Russia. Russia has laws which is basically banning LGBTQI+ people being themselves, but it's a huge boxing nation. So through participation, hopefully we can start changing hearts and minds. But who we are, the World Gay Boxing Championships is a straight-friendly LGBTQI+ inclusive organization. Why do I say straight-friendly? Because inclusion has to mean all of our allies. It has to mean everybody within the community. Were it not for allies, we would not have the rights of marriage equality. Homosexuality would probably still be decriminalized in many parts of the world. But we want to introduce boxing to the LGBTQ community and society at large and encourage individuals to participate in a safe and friendly and comfortable environment. An example, somebody I know started boxing last year. As he was boxing, hitting the bags, he heard another person say faggot a few times. Now, the coaches did not correct the person to say, you do not say faggot when you're boxing. So he stopped boxing at that gym. We'll find him somewhere else. But for us, boxing is an amateur sport, and we're aligning with the Amateur International Boxing Association rules. Because to legitimize sport is you follow the rules of the sport, and we have the support of Boxing Australia and Boxing New South Wales. But safety is our number one priority. Mentioned before, gloves. In boxing, we have the 16-ounce gloves. It protects the impact. We wear the head guard. We wear the wraps. How's your breathing going? How's you focusing about being courageous? Because I can tell you, to enter the ring, you need to focus on your breathing. You need to be courageous. Our goal is to hold those straight, friendly LGBTQ+ inclusive championships. But it's about disrupting that homophobia in sport, that biphobia, interphobia, transphobia, and hatred in sport. How do we do that? Through inclusion and participation. Nobody's going to tell me and my community I do not belong in the ring. Nobody's going to tell Ivan K, Denise, They do not belong in the ring. They're just going to go to the ring and going to, excuse my French, just bloody get on with it. And we're creating a boxing program for everybody. And I'm talking about people, for trans people with diverse genders. If you look what's happening in sport in America, 20 US states approximately want to ban trans kids from participating in sport. Can you imagine you have a trans child? They want to go to the gym, they want to compete, and they're told they're not welcome. I'm sorry, I'm not standing for that. Now, Ivan Schwartz has a Points with Purpose. Points with Purpose is a social exchange program to bring people together. Working with Proud to Play. Proud to Play is a beautiful organisation down in Victoria, focused on LGBTQI plus inclusion, but also through providing education, research, resources. It's a not-for-profit. Things happen from the ground up. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua are rumoured to be fighting later this year. What I've seen is for 150 million US dollars. In the UK last year, the UK suffered an incredible period along the lockdown. A lot of boxing gyms have closed down. Boxing England only had £150,000 to give to support all of those boxing gyms. You think all the amateur clubs that are out there, so the elite level of sport, 150 million, 0.1% of that is given by a boxing body to help those community gyms. So what we want to do, we want to create safe, affirming and welcoming environment for all people. I want to be able to create a rainbow ready program for WGBC that can be implemented with any gym. I mentioned earlier that my friend who said, when he heard someone hitting the bags, said faggot. We want to create an environment where people can feel safe. We want to do some community outreach, community consultation and assessments where, you know what keeps LGBTQI plus people from going to a gym in the first place. I mentioned earlier about the stats about us participating in team sports at half the rate against straight men. Having an assessment, you think about going to the gym for the first time, what's it like? You think about all of those people on Instagram, they're divas, they're great bodies. But gyms should be places for everybody, and particularly for the LGBTQI plus community, because when we participate in sports at half the rate of heterosexuals, and when we go on the sporting field, we're subject to that discrimination, harassment, we need that safe space. So we want to create a program that enables people to participate in gyms, and inclusive gyms where people are welcome. People who want to lose weight are welcome. People who may have a disability are welcome. But we also want to provide an online boxing rainbow ready hub. Imagine you want to start a gym, a community group for LGBTQI plus people, but you don't know where to start. So you go on, you Google search, and that's what we want to have, online resources, and that's going to cost some dollars. So that's our program with the Yarn Circle, with the BBG Diversity and Inclusion Forum. And if you want to get involved, please let us know. We're going to be starting it soon. Now, jump in the ring with us. Jumping in the ring with us. So with boxing, get in your boxing stance, your feet behind each other. You know, it's not about hitting, it's about breathing. It's about joining. It's about believing. Because I mentioned jump in the ring with us, because I believe everybody should have the courage and the right to enter the ring of their choice. It may not be a boxing gym. It may not be a boxing ring. It may be a community group. It may be doing an art class. You have the right and you have the ability to do everything you want to do. Be courageous. Go courage at your own pace. Think about the Stonewall riots. Think about Section 28. Think about marriage equality. Think about that map Sunita kindly shared. All of those countries. Some of those countries, I could be executed. Some of those countries, I could be thrown in prison for years. Some of those countries, I could be subject to persecution. It all changes with us being an ally, having the courage to speak up. You want to know more about the World Gay Boxing Championships? Go on our website, worldgayboxingchampionships.org. Now, we may be jumping a bit too early, but we've had a beautiful 3 great talks today. Norman J. Liverpool IV, an amazing, inspirational Black gay man helping other people. He talked about boosting confidence. Sunita giving a beautiful presentation about what the myths are for LGBTQI plus people, what is happening in different parts of the world. So the question for today is, how can we boost the confidence of LGBTQI plus people and disrupt homophobia and transphobia in sport? That's the question. So I'm going to hand over to Denise and just say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for supporting me. Think about your breathing. Be an ally, be a diva, be courageous. Thank you.